This week on our free preview here on YouTube, join us as we take a look at the port strikes. We're pre-recording this, so they may be over or they may be in for a longer duration. And what are the economic impacts if that happens? We'll be taking a look. Sit back, relax, and join us as we take you through the numbers. Hi, Lauren.
Hi, Lindsay.
How are you?
I'm great. How are you doing?
I'm good, thank you.
Excellent.
We're kind of double dipping this week in recordings.
We are.
Right? It's because you are headed out on a little bit of a vacation and a little bit of work, right?
Little of each.
Yeah.
So going on to a nice beach destination for a keynote, but bringing the family, trying to extend it to a little extra trip.
Why not?
I'll be back, but we couldn't record as usually scheduled, so we're a little bit early pre-recording this week.
And as the headlines do, they brought us some news that was worth talking about.
Yes.
And we want to acknowledge that it's pre-recorded because who knows when this airs on YouTube on Wednesday, then this strike could be over or it could still be going on.
Yes, we don't know.
But we didn't want to not address it.
Right. In lieu of recording two different versions of this show, which we're just not doing. We're going to talk about the dock worker strike. And, I think as we talk about an issue like this, it seems to me that even if the strike does break, hopefully by today, by tomorrow, over the weekend, whatever may or may not happen, I think it's important to talk about issues like this and their potential economic impact.
Right.
Because we've been seeing more of these.
Right, exactly. We were talking about the rail workers strike, which didn't actually happen.
Right.
But if we can take a headline like this when it is actually happening,
exactly.
like the shores, the dock workers, then we can talk about the implications of something like this from a general standpoint as well.
Absolutely. Yeah, and it does seem like we're in a kind of organized labor. I don't know. I say in economics, everything is a pendulum, right? It swings one way, it swings back. Right now, it does seem like the pendulum is swinging toward more of this, collective bargaining, headlininess, or maybe kind of brinksmanship, right? They're pushing right up to the last minute. As you said, the rail strike, that was averted. We didn't see closures and shutdowns and walking off the job. In the case of the ports, we did. We went up to that brink and right past it, and it's now day 3, I believe, of the shutdowns. The interesting part for me with the port strike is it's not just wages. There's also a really interesting component on automation.
Yes,
they don't want their jobs automated away. So a little bit more here.
Right. Well, with regards to automation, we're constantly talking about the benefits of AI and what that might mean. And I mean, years ago, you would hear like the robots are taking over.
Exactly.
So it doesn't seem too far-fetched that will start to be, if strikes like this continue or are threatened, that the threat of automation, quote, taking a job could definitely cause something like this. The headline in this scenario is massive port strike could have devastating consequences for consumers, expert says. So in summary, again, the International Longshoremen's Association went on strike early Tuesday at seaports along the U.S. East and Gulf coasts, and it is expected to cause massive problems for global supply chains and the economy. And again, the strike was over wage increases and the use of automation.
Right.
So we're sitting here I can't even believe I'm saying this, 4 years after a global pandemic.
Is that wild?
It's so wild to me. But what could another supply and demand logistics crisis, like let's just assume it does prolong, what are the implications of this on even something as simple as like groceries? Like we're talking about inflation all the time.
Exactly.
I worry about when you're hearing about like the ports shutting down. What does that mean for something as simple as like, let's just use groceries as an example?
I mean, this very well could mean higher prices. Now, again, it will take some time to feed through. We're going to talk about inventories in just a minute, but the first step is to have inventory drawdowns. If I can't get new materials in, I go through what's on my shelf in my warehouse, etc. We actually do see that non-durable goods inventories are a little bit leaner than durable goods. So things, not just food, but things like energy, oil supplies, those non-durables, their inventories are a little bit lower compared to sales right now. So that's where we will probably see pricing impacts a bit sooner, maybe even a slightly larger magnitude. again, this won't be today, but if the strike goes on too long, that's where
Right.
we will start to see, yes, higher prices. Everything is supply and demand.
And we're just on the other side of those conversations with our clients from this kind of overstocking of inventory when things
Right.
were so hard to come by. And then it took so long to get those products or materials or whatever in. And sometimes by the time you got it in, the demand had gone down.
Exactly.
And now you have a surplus of inventory
And
that
you
you have
didn't
to
need
sell
it.
at a discount.
Exactly. So I guess that's partially good news in this case. If we do still have some of those elevated
True.
inventories, now you can draw them down. Right now is when you need them. But I also see, into your initial question, we're coming off of a massive supply chain disruption.
Right.
I think that's why this potential supply chain disruption really caught public consciousness. That there are so many headlines we say, oh my goodness, not again. But on the other side of that coin, we have just been through this. It taught a lot of businesses a lot of lessons. Do I need to diversify my sourcing or my,
Right.
supply chain, my logistics? Have I made those plans to be more flexible? I think back in 2020, when everything shut down, we were all just so caught off guard. That was
Yeah.
so unprecedented and unbelievable. We didn't know what to do.
Right.
Now we've made some plans. So I think that's going to dampen some of the effect. Just the fact that our businesses, hey, we've been through it once before. We have something of a game plan in place. We know what levers to pull. And maybe we did even diversify back then.
And I mean, not too long ago, we were even talking about other issues with the supply chain and transportation, just with like boats and stuff and the Panama
Right.
Canal and the
Yes.
seizing of the ships. And
Yes.
so it's not really like the supply chain has gotten a break.
It hasn't. This does happen. This is not a completely unprecedented event. Now, the last time this particular sector went on strike, it was 1977. So
Oh, wow.
it has been a good long while.
Yeah.
There have been other disruptions, like we talked about the rails, right? There are different kind of longshoremen unions and so on. But again, it's not unprecedented territory. This is not to your point about the headline, it said this could have devastating impacts.
Right.
It could.
Yeah,
Or it
could.
could not. It really just depends how long this goes on and how long that interruption lasts.
So, but it's 14 major ports. Can you put a dollar amount to bring in a number? Can you put a dollar amount on what those 14 major ports are responsible for?
Yes. So it's 14 major, and I think the total number was 36 that I read. But that's up to, and again, there are estimates, it's a wide range, up to $3 trillion worth of goods going through these
Wow.
ports. So that is a massive
That's a
amount of
lot.
stuff. Yeah.
Of stuff for sure. And it's diversified, right? There's no way
Yeah.
to say these ports are just responsible for everything.
Unfortunately not. It's those big container ships coming in. Even today, we've started to see reports that the ships are kind of queuing offshore, circling, waiting essentially because they can't get their goods unloaded, waiting at these ports, hopefully waiting out a deal is reached and we can get offloaded. Now, it will take time to catch up. So the one estimate that I've heard, again, it's going to be a little different at each port, but in general, they say for every 1 day of stoppage, it's going to take a week, so 5 business days to
Yep.
catch back up.
Wow.
So we're already today looking toward the end of October just to be caught back up running as we would have been on top of, new supply coming in. So if this does last too long, maybe those ships go to Canada, to Mexico, right? We do have the West Coast as a potential option.
Yeah, that was another question of mine. Like, the supply chain isn't just going to stop.
Exactly.
It's going to be more difficult and perhaps more costly.
Absolutely.
So we may be seeing, clients of ours putting, shipping surcharges back on things.
Yeah.
Which, are they going to absorb that cost? Are they going to pass it on to the customer, whoever the customer may be?
Exactly.
So that's definitely something that is a topic of conversation when these things happen
Right.
that we're having with our clients.
Absolutely. And there are, like you said, other levers you can pull. Now, at the moment, everyone is rushing into those alternate
right.
levels. So we certainly, again, I think pricing is going to reflect most quickly. We've already started to
Yep.
see some shipping costs rebound.
I have a quote here from the article. The article talks about the cost of goods has been well controlled with relatively stable commodity prices and, at least until recently, lower shipping costs. However, and the quote is, the port strikes could cause renewed goods side inflation. And this was a quote from somebody that we know very well,
It sounds familiar.
economist at HR Economics, Lauren Seidel-Baker.
Yes.
You did not warn me when you sent
I
this
didn't.
article that
know.
I was going to be halfway through in reading your words.
Yeah, that was kind of fun. My note got picked up by CNBC in this article. So as I was sourcing, hey, I want to talk about the port strikes, this one was very top of mind. So thanks for reading through it.
But I do want to say, I want to read the quote again. The port strikes could cause renewed goods side inflation.
Yes.
I want to read the headline. Massive port strikes could have devastating consequences for consumers, experts say.
Yeah, I'm not that expert.
Not that
There are
expert.
other experts quoted in this article. So I think it will be impactful. Now, again, the difference is we're not seeing the same kind of generalized inflation that we saw during the pandemic. That was really caused by just such liquidity being pushed into the market, right? There was more money flowing around. We had the stimulus checks. The consumer was just spending
Right.
on anything they possibly could. That's a different inflation driver versus something like a shipping surcharge. Now, it's also a different inflation driver than we've seen in the past, I'll call it year or so, maybe 9 months to a year, where it's been that very tight labor market keeping the service side of inflation higher, right? Wage inflation pushing up on not goods inflation. That's coming down. Like I said in the quote, that's very much under control right now, but it's higher wages, anything with more engineering impact or any direct services, right? That's where we see higher prices. So this will feel different. It's not a perfect rinse and repeat for our inflationary environment. But again, the overall impact is goods had been coming down. Now maybe this juices that back up at just the time the labor market's cooling off. And we're finally starting to see a little bit of cooling, right, in that service side inflation.
Yeah, but I also want to bring it back to the labor component too, because this is very obviously a strike of workers based on wages and automation.
Yes.
Again, taking it back and putting it into perspective, it was just in recent months that we were talking about the labor shortage in the ports. So we're already down on workers. We're already slower to offload those containers onto our shores.
Yes.
Because we have a labor shortage.
Right.
Now, those striking laborers are facing an employment market where there might not be a job waiting for them on the other side. How long can they hold out for? How long can they strike for? Does that have a play here at all?
You know, that's a really interesting question because it could. Could
is the word here.
It's so theoretical, but yes, it could. Those are pretty transferable skill sets, right? If you can run a crane on a port, you can probably learn to run a crane on a construction site.
Okay.
This is not all you can do is working at a port. These are very, good technical skills, but transferable skills. And so one of the questions has been, well, if they reach this great deal on wages because they did push up, go on strike, right, get those port owners to the brink, could this draw in maybe construction workers or someone else kind of at that type of role?
Fill the void in the labor
Fill
shortage.
the void. Yeah, if this is the better, more advantageous place to go, right, pick up some new skills, retrain, whatever it is, and work here. Those same types of workers, if we look at construction, distribution, at any of those warehousing, that type of skill set, those are still in very high demand. And so at the end of the day, I keep saying this, we're going to need automation to make our individuals more efficient, to do more with fewer people because we don't have the people. Well, then at the other breath, that is exactly what they're striking over, that they don't want automation to take those jobs away.
Yeah.
So it's a really tough balance to say, we don't want automation. Well, a robot can't walk off the job, so you're almost, we need it more now because it's such a tough, almost irony of the situation.
Definitely ironic. So, here we sit pre-recording this.
Yes.
The strike may or may not be still happening when this airs next week. Talk to us about the impacts based on duration.
Yes. Duration is the thing that matters most. If we resolve this today, tomorrow, even next week, right? If this doesn't go on too long, we'll have a little short-term hiccup, maybe some delays and things getting where they're going, but they'll get there, they'll catch up.
Yeah.
We probably won't see pricing adjust that quickly. It's going to take more than a week for someone to throw a shipping surcharge, right, on their goods or to really reroute those ships to a different port, to a different country. I said Canada and Mexico, they might see some benefit and we'll take it in by rail or by truck.
But I think the timing of it all is also, kind of fascinating to dissect. We are on the heels of the holiday shopping season.
Yes.
So what are the ramifications of a long duration strike in the ports to our shopping season? I know that's pretty retail focused.
Right. But do we not get our holiday, presents in time to really, really go shop? Again, that's a little bit of a longer term impact. So I think we'll still get the whatever the hot holiday toy is this year. We shouldn't see shortages. We'll see sooner impacts in, as I said, the non-durables goods. That's where inventories are thinner, especially in things like the chemical sector and pharmaceuticals specifically. We typically only see a stock of between 2 and 6 weeks on average for those types of goods. So that's where we will be maybe, I hope we can get our drugs in.
Well,
right?
That's concerning because I'm hearing a lot about pharmaceutical shortages. I'm hearing it's very difficult to find your medications, having to call pharmacies across your state.
Isn't that crazy?
To the point now where if you call CVS and ask, they can actually answer you like, no, there's no CVS in the state that has that right now.
You're kidding me.
Yeah,
wow.
I've experienced it with some medications for my family as well.
Oh my goodness.
And that's always concerning for
very,
me. Like
if you need it for health.
Pardon my language, but screw the Christmas toy. But people need their medications.
Exactly.
That's where we should be focused.
Exactly. And so we probably will see those get to where they're going some other way. Now, air freight is much, much more expensive. So again, where does this hit with pharmaceuticals, medicines? We get into kind of the gray area of what does insurance pick up, right? What, that pricing mechanism isn't as clean as other things.
Yeah.
But you can probably still ship it by air freight, right? The airports are still open.
Yeah.
But that just costs so much more money. Someone's taking that hit.
Right. Well, so the alternatives was a place that I wanted to take it with this article. We live near a railroad track and we got stuck with the bars down the other day.
Oh gosh,
and the whole car full of kids, and they're asking all of these questions. And my daughter from the back goes, "Is this the train that never ends?" And it was big shipping containers.
Yeah.
And my partner says to me, he says, "I wonder what the benefit is of putting something on a train versus a truck to ship it across the country, or boats or airplanes."
Right.
And I thought, gosh darn, I should actually, I think what I said was, I think I should know the answer to that.
Yeah.
But in a supply chain shipping type article, I'll just use this platform allow you to answer it.
That's perfect. I know
somebody else might have that question
as well. You bring such interesting questions. I love doing the show with you, Lindsay, because it keeps me on my toes. But yes, there are different goods that make sense to go by truck or by train. So, you think of the 18-wheelers, they can hold so much. And for grocery delivery, right, the big Walmart trucks where it's kind of a diversified assortment of either consumer goods or foods or what have you, that makes sense. But trains are, much longer, right? They can carry much more stuff. You would need so many trucks for that.
But in terms of the cost benefit of these different shipping methods,
right?
Give me just high level expense wise, most expensive to least expensive transportation.
That really varies. So even if we're talking about, shipping on ships and boats, if you're going through the Mississippi or inland waters, it's a very, very different rate than if you're going on oceans. So in a lot of cases, it matters. If the train can take 50 loads of trees that are getting to a port and all going to the same place getting on a ship, that's going to be more economical than 50 different truck drivers all driving them down in a convoy. So something like actually where I had a conversation yesterday with this port closure, one of the groups that's probably going to be hit hard is agriculture. So feed, grain stocks, we produce, a lot here in this country, corn, soy, all of those animal feed kind of products. Getting those out. It's not the imports coming in that will be the issue, but getting those again, massive amounts of stuff. You're not going to air freight that out of the country.
So
but
this is an import and an export issue.
It's also an export issue, yeah.
Is there a transportation sector that could potentially benefit from a port closure?
Air freight. absolutely will be a winner here. To some extent, rail and trucking, but air freight is the one that we see as kind of that last minute, I need this and I need it there tomorrow.
Yeah.
Put it on a plane. I don't care what it costs. So those prices, I haven't checked today. I expect they've already really spiked for just
sure.
the I need, especially pharmaceuticals, small, lightweight things that you can put on a plane, fly them where they're going. That I think is going to be a real winner here.
So my last point, the last place that I want to take this article is with regards to the Federal Reserve's decision to cut interest rates. We just finally saw that 50 basis point cut. Does the duration of a strike like this have any impact on those November and December rate cuts that we're kind of anticipating?
Yeah. So November and December, probably not. Again, duration is going to matter, and any of these impacts, they don't hit us today. They don't hit us tomorrow. They'll take a little time to feed through. But if this does cause, I'm going to use that word the Fed hates so much, but a non-transitory impact to inflation, that is part of their dual mandate. Now, the goods shipping side of things, right? The delays, the supply chain hurdles, they don't care about that. They only care about this in so much as it affects pricing.
Okay.
So we're watching pricing very closely. That's what the Fed would be watching too. But yeah, if this is maybe the trigger that causes inflation to start to come back, could have some impact. I think the impact is going to be muddied because we've been talking about this so much. We expect inflation to really come back in 2025 and beyond.
Too. Now we've kind of seen this cooling in inflation. We're not quite at the 2%, but we're getting there. So we got rate cuts. We've been telling everybody, take advantage of these lower rates because inflation is going to go back up in mid-2025.
Exactly.
And thus interest rates are likely to go up as well.
Exactly.
Could this pull that forward?
Yes. So this could start that inflationary cycle slightly sooner.
Okay.
Again, it's going to be just so hard to say, oh, this is what caused it, because we see the fundamental leading indicators coming back. It's not that we expected inflation and didn't really know why it would come.
Yeah.
There are very, very clear leading indicators in place. So the fundamentals are saying inflation will come back. The risk here is that it comes back a little sooner, a little bit more, to elevated magnitude, but we never will be able to say, okay, exactly X percent of this was because of the strikes and Y percent was because of this factor. It's just so muddied. So we'll all get to point fingers next year when it happens. We'll play the blame game, but it's hard to prove.
Right. And this lends itself to the qualitative side of our analysis when things like this happen and there's uncertainty as to the duration, but the duration could mean devastating effects for consumers. We can implement change in our forecasts faster as these things unfold if necessary.
Absolutely. And I think just knowing what the risk is a big part of it too.
Yeah. And that's why we wanted to risk talking about this in a time where it might be too soon. It might be over by the time this airs.
I really hope it is. It would be so great if we could just get this off the table. But maybe not. And maybe there's another one.
And maybe there's another one. So this is where we talk about it from a holistic standpoint.
Exactly.
That's all the time we have for today here on our free preview on YouTube. Remember to like and subscribe. And if you'd like to subscribe to full-length episodes, click on the link in the description below. But until next time, bye, Lauren.
Bye, Lindsay.